Hey, how you doing? I'm Will Kennedy here on Online Lessons TV, and I'm thrilled to be at lesson 3. We're at lesson 3, and we're talking about the funk. And I said that word funk because I said it in a fashion that it's usually spelled F-U-N-K, but the way I'm saying it and the way I'm feeling it today, it's more like P-H-O-N-K, funk, right? So you'll understand more why I changed or adjusted the spelling because it has a little bit to do with how you create with the word, how you express with the word, but also how you express the music style through your drum kit, right? We're expressing the funk. And there are some components, some approaches that make it special, that make it a little bit more meaningful. We're dealing with creating these magical musical moments. I spoke in the earlier lesson about how you can be on the gig, you're on the stage, and everything is just locked and feels good, and you're communicating and catching the eye of your various bandmates, and everybody's just like, yeah, woo! And you look out in the audience, and they're like, wow, yeah, they sound great, woo! And the opposite of that is just that, man, wow, that I'm sorry look, right? And it's, oh, oops, right? And you look out in the audience and it's like, yeah, let's get a drink. So, but what is that? What is that? How do you create that magic? How do you get to every gig, every single gig, and you just have fun? Even when you don't know the song, even when you may not know the musicians, but you just have this confidence, this ability to get in there and make a funk song feel good. What are some of the components? So in the earlier lesson, lesson 1, we talked about identifying the pulse, and that's usually found in the count, right? So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I spoke about how locking that pulse, that that quarter note in your body center, because when it's locked there in your body center, then you are free to express yourself through your limbs, because every limb is playing its part according to where the pulse is, right? Key point. Lesson 2, we were talking about identifying the primary rhythm patterns, right? Because in most funk tunes, there is a repetitive, repeating sort of groove that is just a hypnotic component that makes the thing funky and makes the thing groove in a pocket, in a sound, in a feel, right? And it's repetitive, and you want to be able to quickly identify that main rhythm pattern, because that is one of the major clues as to what you should play. What do I play? Listen to some of the breaking or foundational primary rhythm patterns, and that will tell you what to play. Find your patterns in the music, and that is the beginning. That is the beginning of that invitation to create that magical musical moment. So, but let's go a little deeper. Let's get a little deeper into that. So, in lesson 2, or actually 1 and 2, I used my band in the box with this very simple bass line and a click, right? And I played this groove, and in this pocket, identifying this rhythm pattern and locking to this pulse, right? Here we go. Here's the example. What is it? What is it about what I'm playing that would be considered one of the smaller grooves, or not small grooves, but one of the grooves that would be in that smaller community of grooves that best support that piece of music? Because earlier we identified that I could play anything I want. There's no rules. There's a gazillion grooves I can play to support this piece of music, but there's a smaller community of grooves and feels that best support that music. So let's just, in this lesson 3, let's take a moment to identify some of the components that make that groove what it is. And that can be identified as the feel, right? That special approach to the groove that gives it a good feel, right? Good sound, right? Okay, so nut and bolts. First of all, I have stick control. I've been playing long enough where I'm striking the snare drum in the center of the drum, or at least I hope I am. And of course, the center of the drum is the most resonant point of the drum and gets the most bigger, fatter sound. And I said the word fat, as I said the word funk earlier, but this fat, instead of F-A-T, it's P-H-A-T, fat, right? And we want a nice, warm, lovely, fat snare drum sound, right? And, the tuning of the drum, the type of drum it is, and the drum head, that's a whole nother lesson, but we're already there. We already have one of the better snare drums available, of course, by Pearl. Woo! Come on now. And I'm striking in the center, and I'm using proper stick control, and I'm using a rim shot, right? I'm not going to go way too technical with that, but that's some of the general components. And that 2 and 4, right? That 2 and 4 is occurring on the 2 and 4. And I said that to be clear about that pulse, which the pulse locked in my body center is the quarter note. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. And that 2 and 4 is occurring right on it, boy. And it's a warm, fat sound, right? For example. Funky. All right. I'm just having fun here, pumping it up. It's all good. It's all good. So one of the other things that's occurring here is I'm defending that pulse, that quarter note pulse, in the hi-hat, right? Now, again, there's no rules, there's no shackles that say, okay, you can only play the hi-hat one way. No, I'm not restricted to that. However, I have found in my strict research of funk playing that one of the ways to have a great feel, a great sense of ground and earth is to play the hi-hat accenting these prime beats, which happens to be that pulse in my body center, right? For example, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what ends up happening here is I'm using the meat of the stick, right? The lower kind of shaft area of the stick to hit the edge of the hi-hat, and then I'm ghosting the 8th note, right? In some regards, it'll end up sounding like just the quarter notes. I mean, yeah, just the quarter note. It'll end up sounding like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. But with that ghosted 8th note, you can almost think about that 8th note is more felt than it's heard. It's more felt than heard, right? And it helps create that that undercurrent, if you will, of pocket, of groove, right? And as I said, in regard to locking that pulse in my body center, all of my limbs are playing their part in accordance to where that pulse is, right? Because I'm providing my own center of gravity. I'm providing my own sense of ground for each limb, because I'm locking that pulse in my body center, and every part is occurring according to where that pulse is in my body center. And man, if you think about playing from that perspective, I mean, just that one point of view right there, you're entering in to advanced level playing. And you know, it's not mine. I don't own it. I'm not claiming ownership over it, but it's discovery. It's the invitation for you to be a contributor to that magical moment that can take place on the gig, where you provide that ground, that earth for your bandmates to stand on and for the audience to be drawn to. And it's a beautiful thing. It's the difference between this. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the difference between that and this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh! Did you feel that? It's funky. Right. Okay. So, snare drum, hi-hat, bass drum. Bass drum is one of the primary components that is locking in with that bass. You've heard the phrase bass and drums locking together. Yes. The bass drum. If my bass pattern is this, if it's just going to repeat that over and over again, then as it should, because that is a funk statement, then I'm locking in with that, right? With the bass drum pattern. 2, 3, 4. You know what's interesting about this funk groove? This particular funk groove with accenting the prime beats on the hi-hat and that particular bass drum pattern, it actually is an independence exercise. It's an independence exercise. Why? Because we have the bass drum pattern playing an anticipation. It's on the last 16th of 2. 1, 2, and right? 1, 2, and and then the and of 3. 1, 2, right? 1, 2, right? So that is independent of this ground, this pulse that's being provided here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll find that when you're first playing this groove, you'll be challenged with that 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Right? Because you have that last 16th of 2 before the and or the downbeat of 3, right? 1, 2, right? That sometimes is challenging. It's a wonderful independence exercise. I mean, it's simple, it's basic, but when you're first learning this groove, you'll run into that wall. You'll run into that challenge, and it's an easy fence to jump over, and you will arrive very quickly because you are a talented musician. So welcome to this world of funk, expression, joy, and ground, creating earth for your bandmates to stand on and for your audience to be drawn to. So I'm going to go out playing this funk groove with some of my funk components here, accenting the hi-hat, a wonderful 2 and 4, and the bass drum pattern supporting the bass line. Amen? I appreciate your presence. I'm on online TV giving lessons here in the funk, right? And we're going to go out with this tune, this groove, and I need you to feel it. If you feel like dancing, come on, join me. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2.